Hey, welcome back to the Personality Hacker Podcast. My name is Joel Mark Witt.
And I'm Antonia Dodge.
We're entering a new year, and we thought we'd take this podcast to talk about kind of intention, a little bit about reviewing our year up till now and give you some ideas on maybe how you want to think about looking at the things you've been through and some of the things that come up for you that you can really latch onto as successes in your life. We're doing a little business consulting with a friend of ours. His name is Brent, and he runs a company called Essential Studios. In fact, if you want to look it up, it's essentialstudios.ca. They're in Canada, and they're a consulting company that helps businesses do marketing and communications. And he's helping us just talk about a lot of the things we want to do in the future and some of the trajectories of our business and how Personality Hacker is going to grow and the community we're going to build. So we're really excited to talk to him. He does a great job. His studios do really good work. And the one thing he does to start off all the meetings, we really love this. He asks us, he goes, okay, guys, before we even start the meeting, let's talk about your personal and professional best between the last time we talked and now. So like if we meet weekly, it'll be like, what happened in the last week that was your personal best and your professional best? And we thought this is such a great idea to start off conversations with, because it's like you get to review your successes, some of the things that you're really proud of, and you're starting off in a framework of possibility, excitement, and reviewing the successes you've had rather than digging right into challenges or problems. So we started off several meetings this way, and I am in love with doing this. This is really a fantastic thing. So,
yeah, I love it too. I think it's such a great series of questions. And I think what's interesting to me about this question, or these two questions, what is your professional best and what's your personal best, is when I'm thinking about setting intentions for the new year, because New Year's resolutions are oftentimes on people's minds right now. And you and I reframe it to intention. What is it that we'd like to accomplish? What do we want to bring to the world? What impact do we want to make? And I've been reframing that at the end of the year, when I reflect back on the previous year, what do I want my answers to be? So instead of making resolutions right now and projecting it forward, I'm actually trying to put myself in the future and ask myself, what do I want to have accomplished? What do I want to say was my personal best and my professional best? And what's nice is that it focuses it just down to one thing of each, which I think is pretty manageable.
well, it can also be pretty abstract, and then all the to-do items can come out of that. Like, let's say you have, for casting for the future, you say, my personal best this year is I want to be, well, actually, this is your personal best. I don't want to say it for you, but being in a really great shape, being in great health. And it's very abstract. What does that mean? That might mean specific goals, like maybe join a gym or eat differently or eat different types of foods. But overarching, it's not like a specific, it's not too specific, but it's specific enough that it gives you a lot of framework to work inside of. So I think that's really the tone. It's an intention that the goals can be built out of, that you're doing for the whole year.
Right. So I think in this podcast, what we'd like to do is we'd like to talk about what our personal and professional best were for last year, and then talk about what we would like the answer to be at the end of this year.
Yeah. So I'll start. And then what we'd encourage you to do is, after this podcast, after this show, head over to personalityhacker.com, and underneath the show notes, leave us your personal and professional best from the past year. Go ahead and just articulate that out there, and let's get a conversation started around this. We thought this would be a really great idea today to do that and facilitate that conversation. So for me, I think my personal best over the past year has been able to, I am very proud of the fact that I've done a lot of work on being able to generate the emotional state I want in real time and be able to shift that almost when things are happening to me. So I look back over the past year, and I've played with this for a while. I've been sort of good at it in the past. I've even talked about it on past podcasts. But I would say that one of the things I'm really proud about this year, or really proud about myself in, is in the midst of really, really whipped up energy or emotion, I'm able to almost stop in the middle of it, pull back for a second, look at what's happening, and then re-articulate the emotion I actually want to be feeling in the moment and be able to project that outward. It's really unnerving to people around me when I can do this, because it's not something that most people can do, and it almost looks disingenuous, and sometimes it is a little disingenuous at first. I realize I'm going down an emotional road that I don't want to be down, and I have to almost perform a new emotion at first. For the first minute or two, I have to almost use so much more effort to get myself into a positive or a different emotion that I want to have, that I almost have to synthesize it through performance, so through amping it up almost beyond what I would normally have to feel. But it kickstarts the expression of it, and then I'm able to just latch onto that and run with that down a different direction. And I'm really proud this year that I was able to get some sophistication around that in moments, key moments, where I'm able to recalibrate. Now, I'm not perfect all the time, but I'm excited to continue into the next year to refine this skill, this personal skill, this personal best that I've gotten from the past year, and continue to express it even further. So that's my personal best from the past year.
Yeah, it's actually really impressive to watch you do it, actually. I mean, I watch you do it not just in reframing to a positive emotion, but I watch you in the middle of something that feels like, well, for me, it would be a tizzy. It would be like, this emotion completely has me by the grip, and I would have to, I don't know, like physically leave this space or go for a run or do something massive to get myself out of that space. I just watch you stop and just go, you know what? I don't want to feel that way. And like, you just neutralize. It's incredible. Like I'm always very impressed by your ability to do so. And it might even feel inauthentic to some people, but I think what you've done is you've mastered this idea, almost like Anthony Robbins' empowering rules. We did a whole podcast like a long time ago, a couple of years ago, I think now, on empowering personal rules. And Anthony Robbins had that empowering personal rule where he said, no matter what, I'm going to make it fun. And it's like you've embodied this concept of no matter what, I'm going to keep myself at a high vibration. Like as soon as I dip into low vibration, I'm going to say, you know what, that's not really tolerable for me. And I'm going to neutralize and just stop the situation and go, how do I get myself back up to a high vibration? And you'll even let yourself feel emotions that need to run their course. I don't think you stop yourself from feeling a necessary emotion. You just stop yourself from getting addicted to them. I think that's really what it is.
Yeah, I think that's probably where it is. And I've got more work to do, obviously, but I'm really excited that how far I've come in this year specifically. I think it's been really exciting for me.
I think what's interesting is as you're talking, it's very clear that your personal best is something that has come out of your auxiliary cognitive function, your co-pilot process of introverted feeling or authenticity. And as you were talking, I was like, well, I think mine is too. I think the thing that I've done that is my personal best is I have gotten to a space where other people's belief structures, what they're believing, their mindsets, their stories, their narratives. We just did a podcast a little bit ago on scripts, the scripts they're running, that I'm not taking any of that personally. I just know that that is whatever is happening. And I recognize that in myself as well. And so instead of experiencing concepts, thoughts, beliefs, narratives, scripts as somehow a commentary on who I am as a person or on the relationship, I just 100% hold the territory of that concept. And so I've gotten to a place where it is very difficult to trigger me. It is very, very difficult to trigger me anymore with a belief or a concept or a thought. Like I just navigate that landscape, and I don't feel threatened letting other people run their scripts. The only time I really insert anything now that appears to be emotional or a trigger is when I think that might be the behavior that will jar them. Like if they're a person who is very persuaded by a passionate argument, I'll go ahead and make a passionate argument. Or if they're a person who understands like irritation, like in a conversation, I'll go ahead and pull up irritation. But if I notice that it's not working, that if it's not getting the thing that I want accomplished, I just immediately reverse course. So now it's a matter of simply trying to find the best tools to engage with somebody on a level that is meaningful to them. Like basically playing in their conceptual sandbox, going to where they're at to try to bring things that I think are super healthy to them. And before, I think I always kind of required people to come to me, or at least meet me halfway. And if they didn't, I got really irritated. But I've just gotten to a place where I don't feel that need anymore. I don't need people to come to me anymore. I really feel like I can meet them wherever they're at. And that's just where they're at. And that's totally fine. And I have no problem with that. I don't feel insulted. I don't feel like they should, that they're somehow selfish or they should be meeting me where I'm at. I kind of assume people to some extent won't be meeting me where I'm at right now. And so I'm okay with that. Like, I'm perfectly okay with that. And then when I see people get hostile or caustic before, like comments on YouTube, or if somebody made like a Reddit comment that was negative about us, or me, or a YouTube comment that was negative, or on the blog or whatever. I mean, like, because you put yourself out there, and all of a sudden, like, immediately you're dehumanized to other people, and so you're fair game. And before, that stuff like really bothered me, and I would allow it to affect or impact what I was going to do next. And at this point, I just it's not that I don't care about those people's feelings. It's just that nothing they say is at this point going to impact me. Like, at this point, it's only going to influence how I create content, because now I'm trying to reach them where they're at, but it's not going to impact like me and my concept of myself, which I think is very much in my auxiliary process. That's an introverted thinking. Like, I think that's me leveling up with introverted thinking or accuracy. That's me focusing on my co-pilot. So I find it interesting that our personal bests both live in our co-pilot process.
Well, and I want to take a moment here to caution you listening. This has been hard won. At least from my standpoint, I'm almost fairly certain. I don't want to speak for you, but this has been a hard-won ability. It's not like it's very easy. We're in this position. Okay, we show up to a microphone, a podcast once a week, and we talk. And it's easy to elevate us and say, "Wow, man, you guys. Well, of course, you guys are awesome. You're talking about all the personal growth stuff, and it must be easy for you. You have your own business. You're in this world. This is probably just something that you're just normally." It just comes naturally to you. You guys are different types of people than me. And I would say basically what you're listening to every week, it's kind of like the NFL. I love American football. I watch the Pittsburgh Steelers play once a week when I can, if I have the time on a weekend, because I love to watch American football. And that 3-hour game is what I see of the Pittsburgh Steelers and their performance. And they perform at a very, very high level, and they often win. In fact, we've won more Super Bowls than any other team at this point of this recording. And what you can often forget when you're watching that game is actually not where the work is happening. That's just the expression of the work. It's the daily practices. It's the drills. It's the weightlifting. It's the eating the right diets. It's working on their skill sets. It's building more skill between the games. That is actually what's happening. That's the work that's being put in. You're just seeing the game play out in front of you. And very similar to this podcast, you're hearing us talk about our personal professional bests from this past year. This is just the game. Like, this is you're watching the game happen. You're not seeing all the hard-won work that went into making that happen. So don't forget that this is not easy to get to these places. This was a lot of hard work. We're making it maybe sound easy. Like, hey, this is my professional best. I was able to do this, or personal best from last year. That's not the case. And it's going to be tough for you too as you work toward these things. So I just don't want you to think like this is not something that takes work. It does. Even anybody has to go through the work on this. I guess that's what I want to make sure you understand.
Yeah, we're not special. This is blood, sweat, and tears.
Yeah. And so we're not bragging like, hey, this came really easy for me. Well, the reason why we're excited about it and we're sharing it is because of how hard it was to work here. We're sharing this with you. Hey, we went through a lot of blood, sweat, and tears, and we're excited to share the goals that we got to, or the things that were our best expressions after really putting a lot of effort there. So I just want to make that caveat as we're talking.
Yeah, thank you for doing that. I think that's important.
So professional best. Are you ready to flip over there to professional side, or do you want to?
Yeah, I'll start on this one. So last year, we actually did pretty well overall. I think we had our best year ever. And we also had a lot more expenses than ever before for the business. I think last year, maybe towards the end of last year, we started realizing that this is a business that is going from an entrepreneurship business where like we're doing everything or most everything with like a little bit of help, to recognizing that we're entering the next phase of a business, which is like an actual legit business. And as two perceivers, this has not been super easy for us. Like, we're way better at the early entrepreneurship phase than we are in like the establishment management phase. And so there's been a lot of growing pains, I think, over the last year, and a lot of things that we did not do right, and trying to figure that out. And even though we had our best year ever, there were some months where we were sweating it. I mean, there were some months where our expenses stay high no matter what, and our revenue may or may not be happening. And fundamentally, as an overarching theme, our revenue was there, but there were some months where it was like, it was not easy. And I think what my professional best is that even in those months that were stressful and we weren't really 100% sure how we were going to navigate it all, and we were entering new territory, I feel like we did a very good job of staying on message. Like our focus was always about the message. What is it that we're trying to do for the world? What is the impact we're trying to make? And I'm very proud of us that it was a very expensive year. I'll just say it was very financially, emotionally, psychologically, like it was a very expensive year overall for us because we were learning a lot of lessons. But despite that, I think we did a very good job of reminding ourselves on a regular basis of why we're doing what we're doing and staying on message, wanting to make sure the quality of our content was there, wanting to make sure that we are trying to do everything we could to impact people in a positive way. Like I feel like my professional best, and yours might be the same or it might be different, but my professional best was regardless of whatever stresses or anxieties or dips, months that were dips or whatever it was, that we stayed in integrity and we stayed the course of keeping on message, which was not always easy. Sometimes it was like, oh gosh, what if the revenue's down this month, and what are we going to do, and how do we pay our employees, and like all this. It could be very easy to get into the eye of the storm, right? Like to just be crazy makers for ourselves. And I feel like we did a very good job of not succumbing to that and making it about revenue. It's just about the revenue, and we got to recoup losses. We're like, what is the highest quality thing that we could be delivering right now, and then resting into that and trusting that we would get the return.
Yeah, I think I would say that's also what I'm very proud of that, in a not prideful way, but I think we did a good job. One of the things that's been on both of our minds this year, and I think we're doing well, and I think this is a professional best from my standpoint. When you have a name like Personality Hacker and you talk so much about models and systems like Myers-Briggs, when people show up, that's what they're looking to talk about. That's what they want to hear and talk about. And one of the challenges we've faced is making sure that we are personal growth focused first. We have a framework that is pushing out, look, Myers-Briggs is a tool. Enneagram is a tool. The Graves model is a tool. Anything we talk about are tools. The point of all this is not to be really good at cognitive functions or understand introversion versus extroversion. Who gives a crap about any of that if it doesn't help us become better versions of ourselves and relate to the people around us? And so we've had lots of conversations around keeping the message about personal growth and blending in the personality type stuff with the personal growth message. And that's a very difficult balance it's a difficult line to walk, like a balancing line to walk, because it'd be very easy to go one side or the other. And, the audience might say, we want more personality type stuff. And we're like, yes, we'll give that to you. But we also want to continue talking about the whole point of why we're talking about personality types in the first place, which is how to grow yourself. And as I look back over this past year, I think we've done a good job at walking that line so far and helping people get enough deep dive information into personality type, but at the same time, not just staying there, not just sitting around and that's all we talk about. We've used that and contextualized it into how we can use it to grow as people and how we can grow the community of like minds. You're listening, you're part of a community of other people that think very similar to you. Maybe not exactly, but they at least have some of the same desires, same values, same interests in growing themselves, and we want to continue pushing that forward. And so I think from my standpoint, I feel like we've done a good job of balancing those. I'm proud that we've done that here as a company and as leaders.
Yeah.
And hopefully that's spilled out to you listening. You understand that that's what we're about. We're about personal growth first and foremost, about growing yourself, understanding yourself, not for who you are, but who you're going to become, who you can become. And that also weaves into personality types. I think that's really important to have personality behind that. So I think that's, from my standpoint, our professional best in what happened this year with Personality Hacker. And I'm excited to see what's going to happen this coming year, because with those things in place, like you talked about the consistency of content regardless, and then the type of content like I'm talking about, I'm excited for you listening, getting involved more and more, and hopefully get to meet you in person with some live events. We get to meet you in person, meet up in your city maybe, or you come to us for a live event, who knows? We would love to continue pushing this community outward and growing it and being even more connected in the new year. So
yeah,
that's kind of how I would articulate the professional best from my standpoint.
So again, we're telling you what our personal and professional bests for last year are, so that we can be an example of how this works. So when you are asking yourself what were your personal and professional bests for last year, then you have essentially how it works down. So ask yourself those questions. Look back and ask yourself, what are you proud of? What do you believe were your personal and professional bests for last year? And then are you ready to share what our goals are, like the thing that we want to be saying for next year, what our personal and professional bests were?
Sure.
Okay. So for me personally, so I'm going to date this podcast just a little bit because I'm going to turn 40 this year. As soon as the year tipped over,
Dum, 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 dum.
I know the first thing I thought was, holy crap, I'm going to be 40, which is, I'm not sure whether or not I think it's a big deal. Like I'm still, like I have so much social programming that tells me to think it's a big deal. And then a part of me is like, yeah, but I'm still pretty young and we live to like 90 now. So I'm going to be fine. Like it's no big deal. So one of the things though that has become very obvious to me is how difficult it is to stay in the same shape that I used to. And my metabolism is definitely slowing down, and it is much more difficult to, say keep weight off than it ever has been in the past. And I thought, I should probably get ahead of the game here. I should probably do what I can to capitalize on my remaining youth and get in the best shape of my life in order to, just maintain from this point on. So my goal, or the thing I would like to say at the end of this year that my personal best is that I'm back down to the shape I was in high school. And I think I can do it. I've got like 10 pounds to get back to that level. So I've got about 10 pounds on me, maybe 15 at the most. And I'd like to get into the shape I was in, which I've actually spent most of my adult life working out. I just kind of dropped the ball when I had a child. That was really the moment when I was just like, all right, I got a kid. I can't really do this. And I'm not really sure why I said that, but she'll be 5 this year, and the demands of being with a toddler constantly are lessening all the time. And so I think this is a completely reasonable thing. I'd also like to get into really great shape when it comes to the food, my inner shape. I'd like to get to a place of extremely high nutrients. And I think that, I've had radical diet changes over the last 6 or 7 years where I tried to do as much nutrient-dense foods as humanly possible. So we have a really great morning smoothie we do, and I've tried to cut out most carbs. I try not to get too many carbs in my diet. I've tried to cut out a lot of sugars, try to keep my protein decent. And, my macronutrients basically are pretty okay. But I think that I could definitely do better. And I definitely allow myself some cheating. I did over the holiday season for sure. So I'm going to do what I can to remove a lot of the cheating, a lot of the justification for foods that I know probably should not be in my regular diet. A little bit of cheating is fine. I'm not going to be, turn into an ascetic or anything, but I'm okay with a little bit of cheating, but I think I'm going to dial it back a bit. So that is my intention for next year, that when I look back, if we do another podcast like this next year, I'd like to look back and say, hey, I made my health goals, and I'm back down to the weight that I was in high school. I'm back to the exercise regime I was, and my food is more nutrient dense than it's ever been.
And then out of that kind of abstract, you can construct goals and specifics that probably look more like New Year's resolutions than anything. But I think it's great. So for me, the personal best this year is I don't have a lot of training growing up in my experience of rest for its own sake. So, I'm a restless person. I'm very motivated to continue staying in action, even if it's just to be in action for its own sake. Because I was wired almost like with this ethic as a child. Like if you're not in motion, idle hands are the devil's work sort of ethos. That wasn't the exact message I got, but that was the ethos I got. And for this year, one of the things I want to be able to do is, when my body is starting to feel maybe illness come on or a lack of energy, giving myself personal permission to stop and just sit and not jump to an activity of watching something or detoxing or, or running to food or something yummy to eat or drink or even entertainment, but literally being able to stop and be present to the rest I need. And I think that rest is something that will help me show up as my best self for you in a relationship and for my children and for the people in my life, because I'm replenishing my reserves I'm not just pushing through. So this idea of pushing through's got to stop personally. I can't just keep pushing even if I'm worn out. I need to stop and rest. And it's going to be hard for me because I'm going to be like, well, the things aren't getting done. And, the business, these deadlines aren't happening. And what if this person doesn't get the email from me they need? And now that's not going to be, they're going to be upset. And that's going to be a big challenge for me to be able to stop myself. And I'm sure I'm going to have all these stories of why I can't. So that is my personal best, is the abstract that I want to, and I need to build goals out of that specifically. But at the end of the year, that's what I look back on and say, you know what? I was able to turn these moments when I felt I needed rest into rest, and being able to sit with myself and not have to feel like I've got to do something at all times.
And when you said that you don't want to have to run to like food or watching something, you mean like being able to rest without having to first anesthetize yourself?
Yeah, like if resting, I don't want to have to just go be like, well, I'm going to rest. Let me kick on a show on Netflix, a Ken Burns documentary to rest or something like that, or whatever. Like I want to be able to rest regardless of my circumstances. What I mean by that, like I don't need anything to rest. I will be able to rest in whatever context I'm in. I won't have to have any crutches for that. So that's kind of the tone that I want to have. It's the ability to rest. Because I think when we quote unquote rest as humans, when I see people resting, they're still doing something. They're just doing a more fun activity. They're not actually resting. It's very difficult to just sit quietly with yourself without checking text messages, without watching something, without reading something, to just sit there and just stare at the ceiling, laying in your bed and letting yourself rest. Some of my most restful moments are when maybe it's a Saturday and I can sleep in and just sit and think, and my thoughts are there and I'm just resting. I'm not doing anything but sitting with my own thoughts and resting. And I think that's something I'd like to develop more of this year. It's going to be a challenge, definitely, especially as we're scaling up this business and all of this stuff in the professional side.
So professional best for the next year, what I would like to look back and see myself having done is successfully translate an entrepreneurship style business into an actual managed business. Like it's got systems set up that are automated, and it has schedules set up that are honored. One of the biggest challenges I have as a perceiver is that I resist schedules like crazy, and I resist systems like crazy. I think even you have a better time of it because you have extroverted thinking as your tertiary function, or effectiveness as your 10-year-old. I don't have it anywhere in my system, in my car. Like I don't have extroverted thinking anywhere. So to me, systems are very difficult for me to rest into. I resist them like crazy. And I think what's going to happen is I'm going to have to really recognize that all the loops I have a tendency to open, and I do it through promising other people things, which is my extroverted feeling or harmony 10-year-old coming out to play. I'm going to have to rest into that this is a business and I can't just keep opening loops. So at the end of this year, what I would like to say is my professional best is I focused on one thing and I did it extremely well. And I was able to rest into it, and I didn't keep opening loops. I just had one major loop, focused on it, did an excellent job, and helped guide the company from an entrepreneurial work, don't have to have schedules, open loops, etc. That we, and in part me, because I'm the person who's going to resist it the most, successfully transferred this into a working, systematized, managed business.
As you said that, I'm like, oh man. Okay, so my professional best for this coming year is this notion of, I get bogged down in I can't do the creative project that I want to do until I finish all the loops I have open now. And what I'll often do is I'll actually create more loops for myself. I think there's an internal almost block I have. Like I don't get to go do that creative thing. That's somebody else. Everybody else gets to do the creative stuff. I have to be the supporter. I have to be the one that makes it happen for everyone else. I have to be the one that sets up all the equipment for the podcast so that both of us can show up for the podcast. I'm the one that has to edit so the podcasts get out. Like I've got all these tasks to do around all the creative projects. And so for me, I don't want to start creative projects because I have to do all the back end work for them as well. And from a professional standpoint, I think I would like to find ways to either delegate those tasks or eliminate those tasks to be more creative, to be more in the front-facing element of following my bliss, to show up, projecting goodness and great thoughts and exciting content into the world. And I think that if I can delegate and focus in on having those things handled without me having to do them personally, and some of this is releasing control for me. Like some of this is I'm a fussy artist on how it has to be edited. And if it's not done the right way, I get fussy about how it looks or sounds or whatever. Some of it's releasing some of the nuance of being that fussy artist, which will be tough. But what it'll do is it'll open up this place for me to be more expressive because I'm not always bogged down on all the work. And I'll resist. Right now I resist some of the creative endeavors I want to do because I'm like, well, I have to facilitate all that creativity. And if I don't have to facilitate that, my hope is that creativity will open up more in the business and how we can show up. So I think to me, it's finding ways that I can either eliminate or delegate the basics of tasks to free up creative expression. You know, I have this vision of us doing some live tours, going and connecting with people in real time. And in order for that to happen, some of the business end of things has to be handled to where we can be away from the office, quote unquote, for a while to be able to show up creatively. So that's something I'm going to really work on this year as a professional best. What I'm going to focus in on is freeing up time for me to show up as my best creative self in the business.
I don't think those are mutually exclusive either. I think we can do both of those things.
No, I know.
Yeah. I mean, I think for me, I'm sure a lot of my perpetually opening loops has put a lot of work on your table. So I think actually me focusing on one thing at a time and not being like an open looper all the time is probably going to help facilitate us focusing on one major thing, getting all the back-end systems handled so that it can free you up for more creativity.
Yeah. So we got an exciting year coming up. We hope you stay with us here at Personality Hacker on the show because we've got a lot of cool ideas and people we're talking to and expressions this year coming through. Yeah.
Well, and also, again, I mean, this might sound like a really self-indulgent podcast. And we're like, hey, let's tell you what was going on for us this whole time and what's going to go on for us for the next year. But really, this is how it works. So ask yourself these questions. What are your professional and personal best for last year? And what would you like to be saying in the upcoming year was your personal and professional best for this year?
Yeah.
And share it with us. Please come over to personalityhacker.com, find this podcast, and underneath the podcast notes, let us know what your professional and personal best were for last year and what you are hoping will be your personal and professional best for this upcoming year.
Yeah. If you'd like to join a community of like minds, people that think similar to you, maybe not exactly, head over to facebook.com/personality hacker, or you can also find us at twitter.com/personality hack, HACK.
If you enjoyed this podcast, you can subscribe to us on iTunes and various Android platforms. And if you're feeling particularly giving, please leave us a rating and review on iTunes. That really helps us out.
My name is Joel Mark Witt.
And I'm Antonia Dodge.
We'll talk with you on the next Personality Hacker podcast.